Well, I think it's fine to take public comment, but this committee has been working on this for quite some time, and sometimes we allow ourselves to give people the, I think, disenchanted idea that if they love their fire station half as much as they love their trash can, that nothing can change here. And that just flat out isn't true. I mean, I'm glad to take comment, but I know we're going to hear, just like I heard about garbage cans, we're going to hear about, I love my fire station. And so do I, because Station 3 is rather close to my house, actually. And I kind of know those people. But, you know, the experts bring forth what needs to happen to be not only the most efficient, but deliver the best service. So while we can listen, I don't want to give anybody the idea that if enough people scream and yell about Station 3, that we'll memorialize it and it'll become a shrine. At some point, we take the professional's word for how this has to go, and we pass on the information. But we don't go, now dear, how do you feel about your fire station? There's a difference between taking public comment and leading people to think that if they all don't like this, we're going to just be able to leave things the way they are, because monetarily that's not true. So we need to do a better job of this than we did with the trash cans, at giving a brief report with some important bullet points at the front that we know people are needing to know and wanting to know. But we need to start from the truth rather than everybody's high blood pressure and red-faced approach. Otherwise, your public forum is nothing more than people coming to use us for your local psychologist and thinking that they had an impact on changing something or stopping something that they don't have an ability to stop. I mean, if I had my druthers, we wouldn't be doing this really either, and we certainly wouldn't be looking at regional firefighting, because the whole principle way back was to have these stations in neighborhoods so you've got a quick response time. But the fact of the matter is, then, we need to let them know that that isn't the way it's happening. And if they look around, nothing is the same way as it was. So we can't leave this the way it was if we want public safety to be primary. But we need to be upfront with that piece, because you can get carried away with, as I said, leading people to think that they're going to change it when, in fact, we're already changing something that we might not be too fond of changing, but we don't have an option. So I think we need to be clear about the information we're presenting.
I also think we need to be clear about what's presented, but the fact of the matter is that their opinion does count, and they do have the ability to change what's happening. And so, because all they have to do is sway one of us to do something or another, and that is something that happens when people talk and you listen. And so I think it's very important that we talk about the type of process that was used. We talk about the fact that the stations that are actually serving them are these ones, and how this will all fit in, and the fact that it's all designed to make it so that our performance is either at minimum the same or better. And so those are the key facts to make sure we get out there. But I certainly wouldn't put forward the idea that they can come and talk, but we've already decided and it's not going to make a difference.
We haven't decided, but neither will they decide simply by stating their point. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Copeland?
When you're looking at approximately $10 million, I presume in order to get there, we'd have to pass some kind of bond referendum.
Well, and that was all part of our dollars. A lot of it's going to depend on whether or not we can do something with our existing levy. And again, we're just in the early stages of, we were just trying to brainstorm where those dollars would come from. Also, the value of the land, I have no idea, and we'd have to at some point in time get what the value of the property would be, what kind of dollars those would bring in as well. So between all of them, and maybe between the sale of the land and the grant that we could possibly get, maybe we wouldn't have to go out for a levy. And all of those things are what we're going to have to look at as we move forward.
The reason I bring that up is that most likely we'll need some kind of levy. So obviously, we have to have the public support to make this happen.
Correct.
And so it's what you're doing tonight is a good thing, because people have to understand the problems, the future problems we face.
Thank you.
Mr. Nephew.
I was scribbling some notes, and a lot of them really wind up being similar to what both Marv and Kathy have been saying. I think that I put a great deal of weight on the professional opinion of the firefighters and the process that came to this long-considered proposal of what we need to do. And so, from my perspective, you know, I'm not an expert in those areas. I don't have that kind of familiarity with how these things run. And so my inclination is to go with what you guys are saying needs to be done. And I'm going to guess that, you know, certainly I have a certain feeling of security in a fire station being near my house, and it's going to be closed if this plan is adopted. But I know that there are firefighters that work out of that station that have a better idea of how it actually operates, and that maybe my sense of a security blanket there on the corner that I sometimes drive by isn't really the thing that I should be focusing on. So I think there's a great deal of importance in a public participation as this process moves to the next phase, but I really think that a lot of what that needs to be is a educational component to give members of the public a reassurance that this is about coming to the best service that we need for all of our residents, and to listen to concerns that they have and to be able to answer those concerns. And they may come up with, you know, some particular things that I can't think of offhand that maybe could affect how operating procedures are put into place in order to address some of those concerns. I mean, just looking at the map, I obviously have a concern about the very far south leg because of the time that there's going to be before there's a new Station 1 and how long it would take to get down to Carver Avenue. But on the other hand, realistically, until development happens on that end of the city, that's a pretty sparsely populated area, and we can't build a $5 million station or maintain one for the sake of you know, areas that have density of one house per 2 to 10 acres and things like that. So I think a big part of getting input from people is really a means of bringing the community forward. And Marv has a great point that to realize this, we as a city are going to have to be coming up with funding for it, and that's going to mean building public support. And certainly I know that the rumor mill has, I haven't gotten any direct emails about this, as Jim did when he gave me a call the other day, but I think that the rumor mill is already churning on this. It has been for a while, probably because people with some sense and foresight have seen this coming down the pike as an inevitable pressure. But we need to manage that public perception in a way that affirms the value of the fire station and supports the mission and so forth. The other thing that I did want to bring up is the issue of the idea of the fire district. And I'm really interested in this, partly because it's something that I've heard of from officials in neighboring cities. I think that it's probably inevitable, and I realize we're running a little bit short on time today, but I think that that's also something, having some clear ideas of how that might work may also be something reassuring to people, because we have a funny shaped city, and you know, it may be, especially if more development happens in the far south leg, the southeast corner, and also on the Woodbury side, that a fire station that serves across city borders, you know, 15 years in the future, 10 years in the future, whenever there might be development there, is the thing that's going to make more sense. And so I'm curious to know how a fire district can come into being, what its governance structure would be like, how there would be oversight of its, you know, of its taxing authority, things like that. And I would imagine that those are questions that residents would have as well if we have some further public discussion about this.
Very good, and I guess I just want to comment on the mayor's comment. Absolutely, we are not, in this change, we're not making it again. We're making it to make ourselves sustainable in the future. Our whole goal here is, and we're not trying to sell this to anyone that we're going to reduce response times or anything. Our goal here is to maintain the response times we currently have, or make them better when possible. And real quick, I'll give you a story, and it just so you get a little bit enlightening in this, and that is about less than a month ago, we had 3 calls going on at the same time in the Legs area down there. One of our ambulances was just on its way back to Station 2. I think they were about McKnight and Larpenter. We got a call for a gal having chest pains over on Larpenter on Jackson Street, just couple houses or somewhere in that area, and not very far down. And when we got there, we did a 12 lead very quickly. Our medics made a very good call that there was a blockage. This needed to be taken immediately. They were taken to Regents, wasn't it, I believe? The patient went to Regents. They immediately got in. The bottom line to this whole story is that when they got in there was 100% occluded blockage in a couple of her arteries, and they were able to, within 46 minutes, from the time that we received the call to the time that she hit and got her vessels open, was 46 minutes. And so those are the kind of stories, and those are the things that we strive to do day in and day out. For Johnny, who fell off the tricycle and has got a scun knee, and maybe the knee hurts, if we take a little bit longer to get there because we're providing a higher priority service to someone else, we understand that. And so we're not making that claim that every call gets the exact same service. But the priority of the way we set those calls up are what's important to us. So getting that artery opened in 46 minutes is huge compared to the full cardiac arrest that could have taken place or the damage that could have done to that heart. And I would imagine within a few days that person was back home doing their normal day duties. So those are the things that we look for when we put this together.
Anything else from the council? And you've concluded everything?
Unless you have any other questions.
I want to make sure that I extend to all of you who put all of your time into this process the thanks of the entire council. We really appreciate, and as Mr. Nephew said, we really value your opinions and your professionalism and your willingness to take time to do this above and beyond all the million other things we ask you to do. And so thank you very much for your efforts in this case.
We couldn't have done it without him. I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
So we will move on to our other item that we need to do on the workshop, which is a discussion on even year elections. And Ms. Guilfoyle?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This evening before you, I've just brought a very brief report, and I do apologize, this did not get included into the packet. We were rather busy with elections, speaking of elections. But I do have several copies of the report on the back table, and we will have staff upload it to the website as part of this packet as well tomorrow. But what we're going to just talk about a little bit is we are currently on an odd year election cycle, and we were wanting to have a conversation about moving possibly to an even year election cycle. Aside from working with Ramsey County and the Secretary of State's office conducting the federal and state elections, as you're well aware, the elections divisions conducts the odd year elections for mayor and city council member. On this front page of this, I've just put some statistical information on here for you for what the costs have been for all of the elections since 2001, how many registered voters we had for those years, and you can see that it kind of fluctuates back and forth, but stays between 20 and 23,000. And then also the percentage of voters that show up for the elections is greatly fluctuates as well, depending on the odd or even year. Also, I indicated on the last column what was on the ballot for those times, because you can see in 2003, on an odd year election, we had a 41% turnout. And so when I went back and looked, we had 2 council members, 622 school board, 623 school board, 624 school board, and then they also had a bond referendum and a capital levy. So there was quite a good turnout for that year for the odd year election. As you will notice, the budget for odd year elections, actually for all of the elections, has progressively risen over the last 10 years, and this is due to several things. One of the things is that we have several more election judges every year. You've seen the list grow when I bring it to you for the resolution to approve the election judges. We are required to have so many for so many different duties that they are now performing since some law changes in 2004. Also, the maintenance costs, we used to have, our maintenance costs used to be $2,500, then it's $3,500, and then this year it was $8,000. Because the election equipment has gotten older, and the